What the hell?
Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 sends Ethan Hunt on the hunt for his most dangerous enemy yet, ChatGPT, all of which unfolds in a narrative so long-winded and convoluted that I'm not even gonna try to summarize it here. Instead, you should just do as Tom Cruise says and see the movie if you haven't already.
Don't do it, you're going. That's it! If you do,
That being said, since I, Phil, am a big MI and TC fanboy, please allow me to do a quick personal one-line review of this movie for you. Dead Reckoning Part 1 is by far the best movie I've ever seen that I've been disappointed by.
What the fuck?
And although my initial plan was to shortly explain that in the beginning here, I now realize it'll be a Mission Impossible in that amount of time.
I don't ever want to see it again!
So I'm gonna do my own two-parter and make a full video about that topic sometime in the future. Today, however, I want to focus on the positive side of Dead Reckoning, on the fact that it is indeed an incredible movie. So much so that it proves the bond between Tom Cruise and writer-director Chris McQuarrie to be the one Hollywood marriage you want to keep your eye on. The babies that these two have been pushing out are top of the line. Whoops, never mind that. And since Dead Reckoning Part 1 is incredible for a lot of the same reasons that I've covered around the early movies, this time I want to focus on and learn from a very specific topic that is very special. That topic being this movie's ability to seemingly cheat time itself. See, not only is this a really long movie, but all the parts that it's made up of are really long as well. Most of the scenes and sequences here are way beyond normal length, ranging anywhere from 50 minutes to over half an hour. The craziness of which cannot be understated. To have a modern general audience be fully invested that long on one thing without losing focus to their phones, it's a Mission Impossible. Yet, somehow, this Mission Impossible pulls that Mission Impossible off. So today, let's see how it does that. How Dead Reckoning Part 1 is able to take you on a ride that keeps on going and going like a supercar with endless gears. Like that rising music in Dunkirk that keeps you hooked forever because its rise doesn't seem to have an end. Here's a couple useful ways to make your movie untouched by the weight of time. The first way Dead Reckoning cheats time is by filling scenes with rivaling factions and flipping the dynamics between those factions in a way that blows in fresh air. As a more basic example to begin with, look at the beginning. Ethan has tracked down his love interest Ilsa Faust to get one half of the MacGuffin key that controls the evil ChatGPT, which Ilsa loses her life over. And what follows is a long-winded exposition scene of government people talking about ChatGPT to explain it to the audience.
This entity has multiple personalities, at times behaving like a computer virus.
Which is followed by Ethan talking to his superior about the mission.
I put the bounty on Ilsa's head, and I didn't ask her to steal the key. She did that for reasons of her.
As in, we have a 12-minute scene of people discussing exposition in one single room. AKA, the worst possible way to begin a blockbuster movie because the audience will already go to sleep. Yet, it doesn't feel like a 12-minute scene because after 6 minutes, this happens. What you might see on the surface here is a twist, but I want you to look deeper into how the fundamental dynamics of the scene have changed. We've gone from government colleagues discussing exposition to Ethan confronting his superior/opponent. The relationship dynamic is more hostile, different. We've gone from government bosses controlling the room to Ethan being the one in control. The power dynamic has shifted. It's different. We've gone from believing that Ilsa is dead to knowing that she's alive. The emotional dynamic is more positive. Different. It's still the same scene, yet different. Fresh. Anew. And this is something the movie constantly plays with on way harder levels, like in the airport sequence. Essentially, there are 4 different factions in play here. Ethan and his team are trailing a buyer to follow the full MacGuffin key to find ChatGPT. A squad of CIA agents is after Ethan to take him to custody. A third-party pickpocket is there to get the MacGuffin key, and ChatGPT itself is also present along with its mysteriously menacing henchmen. And now, as this 20-minute airport sequence plays out, what you see is the various dynamics between these 4 factions constantly flipping. The agents are quickly closing in on Ethan until it turns out that Ethan is trolling them.
They're headed to Terminal E. That side of the airport is all yours.
Ethan is nearing the buyer until it turns out that the pickpocket is also in play.
He was bumped.
Bumped.
Ethan catches the pickpocket, Grace, and realizes that she's not really a threat and that she can be used as an asset.
You want the money, and I can give it to you.
The mission overall is pretty lighthearted until ChatGPT enters the chat with henchmen that kill the buyer and a bomb that threatens everyone's life.
Looks like we have 5 minutes.
So it appears to be nuclear.
The agents are finally starting to corner Ethan. Ethan's focus on Grace lowers and she reveals her true nature. ChatGPT and its henchmen turn out to not be the true hostile force for the moment, but the CIA agents do turn out to be. All of which, coupled with the truth about ChatGPT, makes Ethan cut ties with his team and carry on alone.
Where do we rendezvous?
No, we don't.
Please watch the full sequence with this in mind yourself, because there's more there than I can cover here. But my point is that the reason this 20-minute sequence doesn't feel 20 minutes long is because it's constantly changing and evolving, becoming new while remaining the same. It is some of the best scene sequence writing I've seen. And the movie keeps doing this, like in the Italy chase. Ethan thinks he has Grace under control, but he doesn't. Ethan and Grace seem to be the main opponents, but they're not. ChatGPT's henchmen seem to hold exclusive power, but they don't because there's also other players like the CIA and local police. Ethan and Grace are rivals until they're forced to work together, until they grow to have a romantic relationship even, until they don't have it anymore.
Don't hate me.
Grace! Grace!
Once again, it's this constant dynamic evolution between multiple parties that makes these sequences so exhilarating to follow, to the point where time doesn't exist. The negotiation scene is really interesting because the hero can't just attack the villain like usual. He must first deal with the third party who currently holds power and chooses which way the tide blows.
Kill him, Zola. Kill him. Kill him where he stands.
While the rest of Hollywood is struggling to play checkers, this movie masters 4D Chinese chess. And by viewing your scenes and sequences 4-dimensionally, you can do it too. The second way Dead Reckoning cheats time is by ensuring that the end of current events is in sight and approaching. If you look at the government exposition scene, again, it is boring verbal fairy dust that should put us to sleep. But the reason it doesn't is because we have something to look forward to. There are quick shots of this suspicious-looking man with a suspicious-looking briefcase approaching the room. That's clearly an end for what we're currently doing. We get enough of a sense to know that once this man with the briefcase reaches the room, something will happen that prevents the exposition from going on anymore. We don't go to sleep in this dark tunnel of exposition because we can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Humans are the weakest link in any security chain.
Now, of course, the exposition doesn't actually end when the man enters the room. He doesn't change the fact that it is still boring exposition, which is part of the reason why I personally don't think this is a good scene in of itself. But to be fair, his presence maintains the same idea. He takes his place, he starts opening his briefcase, he's taking something out. The scene maintains our focus by introducing something in the horizon beyond which the scene cannot exist in the way it is now.
They're not ones to take orders in the traditional sense. We more or less...
As maybe a better example, look at the airport sequence and you'll find many endings heading our way. Ethan does buy some time with the agents by leading them astray, but the agents are still there and getting closer. The sequence cannot go beyond the point of them getting close enough. There's also an established flight that the buyer is getting onto.
Departing in 30 minutes on flight 1031.
Benji, get me on that flight to Venice.
The sequence cannot go beyond that flight. And there's also ChatGPT's bomb, which brings a more literal sense of end. The point is to think of your audience as kids in a car. If they're lost, they get impatient and they keep asking,
Are we there yet?
No.
Are we there yet?
No.
but if you make them understand where they are in relation to the car ride's end or that an end is soon coming, they don't ask. The relativity makes them feel a sense of progression and momentum. Just like Dunkirk's music that always appears to be ending even though the end is actually still far away. And what Dead Reckoning shows is that there are various ways to create this sense of an upcoming end. It can be a literal ticking clock, like the bomb in the airport sequence or the bomb on the bridge in the train sequence. It is the simplest form of this, but it can do the job. The numbers are running down and we can't unfocus before they do. It can be a hostile force on our heels, like how the agents are constantly breathing down Ethan's neck. This easily gets a bit repetitive, yes, but if done right, it can also do the job. Ethan's casual talk with Grace at the police station cannot go on forever because the agents are in the other room looking for him, because the villain is in the other room looking for her. The sense of an upcoming end can also be a mid-scene objective, like Ethan wanting to get rid of his current getaway car to change to another, which is a tangible way to establish that we are closer to the end now than moments earlier. It can be an established future event, like the villain prophesizing that he will get the MacGuffin key on the train.
While parsing every possible cause and effect, the key will come to me tomorrow on the Orient Express.
Which is something we can now look forward to. We feel like we're progressing toward that established event in time. We're interested to find out how it comes to be. We know that the train sequence has a form before that and after that, and that the current form cannot go on forever. It can be an impending doom, like the White Widow gradually waking up from her slumber, which will mark the end of Grace's ruse pretending to be her. Like Ethan having to escape his cuffs before a train runs a train on him. Like the train at the end literally falling to its doom one car after another. There won't be those forever. Again, watch the movie for more examples, but the main thing to be aware of is relativity. The villain could just immediately blow the bridge at the end, but doesn't because we don't yet know where it is. Instead, he activates a timer, and after that, the explosion when we're close enough to know our position, so that there's always exhilaration. If we didn't know the relativity, then it'd be more about tension. There's a difference. And once you understand that difference and can master it in different situations, then you too can virtually erase aimless boredom, one scene after another. The third way Dead Reckoning cheats time is by adding fresh elements to familiar scenes and sequences to buy more time with the audience. The Rome getaway, for instance, shouldn't work for the reason that on the surface it's the same as the Paris getaway in Fallout. Ethan is fleeing cops in a major European city, this time just on 4 wheels instead of 2. It's so similar that we should get bored of it fairly quickly.
Something very familiar about all.
But we don't, because there's new additions to fundamentally switch it up. There's the relationship element between Ethan and Grace, which basically makes this getaway their first date. You know, they don't know each other, but they're forced into this shared experience and have to make the best of it. They're cuffed together in a small space and thus must do things together in a very intimate way that oozes sexual tension. We have jokes about Ethan not getting it working, so to speak.
I'm sorry, this is...
It's okay.
No, this car, the way they...
It's okay.
We have moments of them pushing each other to situations they're not used to or comfortable with.
No.
We have the conclusion where it's clear that she likes him, but in a way that saves much for later. Already very different from Fallout, where Ethan was just fleeing alone or with inactive friends. And there's even more additions, like the hurdle of Ethan being cuffed to someone else while making his getaway, like the rivaling factions being multiplied, with a jester villain who will ram Ethan off the road, with CIA agents who want to capture him specifically, on top of the local cops who are just doing their job. Overall, there is so much specific freshness here that the chase is set fully apart from the one in Fallout and from 99% of other movie motor chases, even the ones released the same year, also set in the same spot of Rome. Since the audience hasn't seen it, they're more inclined to remain focused and invested. And the beauty is that this freshness can come from anything, any element big or small that alters the usual core of the scene. It can come from unusual dynamics, like when Ethan meets the villain from his past. Normally, he would just start fighting the guy, but he can't because there's a third party holding power, a party who Ethan must first convince to gain access to the villain. That's a very strange way for a hero and villain to meet, under circumstances where neither has the power to do anything to the other directly. This freshness can also come from a fresh location, like Ethan having to fight enemy henchmen in this narrow Venice path. Fighting more than one enemy, we've seen that, but what we haven't seen so much is fighting in a two-dimensional space, where you can't really run and get distance, where the fighting by default is uncomfortably intimate. Freshness can also come from going against tradition, like when Ethan faces off with the jester villain who has been built up as this super formidable badass warrior. Whereas usually modern Hollywood would make Ethan barely survive and escape her, not so much here. He beats her ass in a very clear-cut and degrading way that wipes out the badass build-up that's been done for her, to a point where she doesn't seem so badass anymore, which is strangely satisfying and invigorating.
I see you do it again, you're gone.
Because we're not used to getting such a clear win this early. We don't really know what the movie will now do with the jester villain. Freshness can also come from a whole new kind of action that hasn't been seen in such a manner before, like with the train climax of the cars falling down one at a time. This train sequence as a whole has been going on forever already, but we don't even notice because we're fully in awe of Ethan and Grace having to climb these cars as they keep collapsing. While it has been taken from another source, as per usual, it is new for a movie in this way, and thus, we're hooked. In general, my point is to think of your scenes like those boosters in Mario Kart. Just when things appear to be slowing down, something comes along to kick up momentum again. You can't do that with every scene, but you should strive to do it in enough scenes to keep the pace up forever. Do it successfully like Dead Reckoning, and it'll be like your movie is immune to time. Like it just begins and then 2 hours later ends.
Impossible.
That's how to make time your bit. One special scene and sequence at a time. But to be very clear, nothing of course can go on forever. At the end of the day must end. We all gotta go to sleep. And I know that can be tough, especially now that we're all thinking about how amazing Dead Reckoning is and what bad things I could possibly have to say about it in my negative video. Well, don't worry, cause I have the solution for this problem. A life hack that's gonna put you to sleep like if Randy Orton jumped in to RKO you. But, you know, less violent. It's this hot drink powder called Dream, a healthy blend of hot cocoa, for example, formulated to help you get the best night's sleep possible. Now listen very carefully. If you struggle falling asleep, staying asleep, if you wake up tired in the morning, this is designed to help. The powder contains these big brain ingredients like melatonin sampled just the right way to ease your body and mind for sleep. There's a bunch of flavors to choose from, and they sent me the hot cocoa one to test out. I usually have trouble falling asleep because my head is always trying to pre-do the writing work of the next day, which leaves me tired in the morning. And to be fair to Dream, this did help. It clears my mind, gets me asleep faster, saves me time and energy for the morning. Plus, there's been like a study where 93% of participants said that it helped them get better sleep. Right now, Dream is sponsoring up to a 50% end of the year sale to allow everyone to test it out for themselves, so if this is something you could benefit from, check it out with my link below or by scanning the QR code on screen. Thanks.